All right, everyone, welcome back to the Wilkes-Barre Connect podcast. Today, my guest is Ken Okrepkie from the Ben Franklin Institute, who's one of the regional managers there and helps out with the Connect program and our Tech Accelerator and a lot of different organizations here in Northeast Pennsylvania. So thank you very much for being here, Ken.
Yeah, good to be here. Pleasure's all mine.
So I guess I want to start a little bit with what is Ben Franklin? And so for those who may not understand sort of the role that they play outside of NEPA and what we do as far as our entrepreneurs, but top level down, sort of what is Ben Franklin overall?
Yeah. So Ben Franklin Technology Partners was founded in 1983. Essentially, in a recession. And the idea was, how does the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania invest money in technology to create innovation that creates and retains jobs across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? So there are actually 4 Ben Franklins. Okay. There's one in Philadelphia. There's one in Pittsburgh. There's one that runs from Erie to Harrisburg, with by land mass is probably the largest. And then our Ben Franklin covers the northeastern corner. So we are Ben Franklin Technology Partners of Northeastern Pennsylvania. Our headquarters is on Lehigh University's campus. But we and then I specifically am located in Scranton, Pennsylvania. But I cover the truly the northeastern corner, the 6 counties that start in Pike County in Milford, go lower Luzerne County, south of Hazleton, and then north of the New York State border, right up the I-81 corridor. So any deal that comes through those 6 counties comes through me, and then our portfolio team makes an evaluation and then invests in those companies. So we were created for 3 purposes. Number one, we invest money in early stage technology companies. So think of Shark Tank. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania allocates dollars within the annual budget. It is provided to the teams at Ben Franklin, and then we evaluate deals that we think can create jobs in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They're scalable. They have intellectual property. And then they have a management team that we think, that has an expertise and an understanding of the market to actually, build the company and to scale the business that's there. So we, first of all, we invest money in early stage technology companies. Number 2, we connect manufacturing companies to resources to support either product development or process improvement projects, so that they become as efficient as possible and as strong as possible in northeastern Pennsylvania, and they never leave. And we can actually provide capital up to $50,000 grant to a manufacturing company to engage a resource that supports something that they're trying to do, either roll out a new product or reduce scrap, implement an ERP system, plant layout and design for expansion, automation, et cetera. We can pay the consultant to actually implement that strategy. And the third thing we do, we support the entrepreneurial ecosystem in northeastern Pennsylvania. There are 7 business incubators in northeastern Pennsylvania, owned everything from a college to an economic development organization to independently run. And those incubators happen to be part of the Ben Franklin Incubator Network all collectively. It's 15 business incubators all across our region, one of the largest business incubator networks in the country. So we provide a little bit of capital, but then myself and my colleagues that work for Ben Franklin, we work with the people who run those incubators and then support the companies that are in them, so that maybe someday they become Ben Franklin clients and we invest in them. And in other days, they just create jobs, they move into the community, and that's good for northeastern Pennsylvania. So again, there's 4 Bens. We're a statewide organization. Ours is headquartered in Lehigh Valley, and then I'm responsible for the deal flow up here in northeastern Pennsylvania, and then proud to be a partner for Wilkes-Barre Connect, one of the many folks in the community who've collectively have come together to work together to support entrepreneurship in Wilkes-Barre and the greater Wilkes-Barre area.
I appreciate that. And that's a great overview. And I don't think for a lot of our listeners that they realize that while we're doing this here in the Northeast, that it is part of a larger statewide network, and that it's one of those that we really are trying to find ways of putting money back into our local economies and trying to help entrepreneurs with these investments. And I think that when you hear all of that in sort of that grand scale, that sort of 2-minute overview, it's like, wow, there actually is help here. Why do you think so many people don't realize that Ben Franklin and all these other groups and incubators and accelerators are available for them if they have ideas for businesses?
Well, I think starting a business is hard, right? Everybody wakes up and has that aha moment, and they're like, I could make this. This would be better. This would make my life better. This would be better for all of humanity. It's a big step to go from, hey, that's a good idea, to I want to start a company, I want to build a product, and I want to go find customers, right? So there's a difference between ideas, hobbies, and building corporations. And so that's hard, I think, out of the gate. I think once people have made a commitment to say, I'm building a company, I have intellectual property, I have something special and unique, I'm going to protect it in some way, and now I'm ready to go build a company. I think that's when people find us. And I think, everybody wait. I mean, listen, if we all took 30 seconds and said, hey, did I think of a great idea before that idea was real? Every one of us would say, I remember when I was walking down the street and I thought that would be perfect. But it's a big leap to say I'm going to take that idea and actually turn it into a product. I think to your point though, northeastern Pennsylvania is rich with organizations who want to be helpful to help those entrepreneurs. And maybe it's in capital, maybe it's in building a prototype, maybe it's in helping to identify the first customers, maybe it's a business plan to decide is that business even feasible. Whether it's the SBDC, and Dorothy Lane and her group, they're affiliated with Wilkes University. So at all levels, the resources are here. And then they come to us in many cases. We can be some of the first capital into their deal. We can help them. We don't do as well in research and development. We do better in commercialization. So build a prototype, build a beta, show that there's some level of market interest. It doesn't have to be $1 million in sales, but that somebody's willing to pay for it. Because that's the other big hurdle, right? Yeah. There are a lot of great ideas. There are a lot of people who build prototypes and build products. The real challenge is now get somebody to part with their capital, their money, in order to pay for your thing, and then to be able to do it efficient enough that you can be profitable, right? So there's a kind of a continuum from idea all the way to creating jobs. But I think once people get that part where I'm interested in a company, they reach out to the chamber, they reach out to the SBDC, and then they get to me later. A lot of folks might not know about Ben Franklin, but the challenge is, if you have an idea, there's nothing I can do for an idea. I can point people in the right direction, and I can help them find the resources to take that idea and start to convert it into a product or a service or something that could start to attract market traction. But I'm really coming in the commercialization side. And because remember, the taxpayer, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, has provided money to us to create jobs. So we have to start with, is this idea an idea and a company that can create jobs? If we can't get to the point to say, we think they could create 10, 20, 30, 50, or we have a company up here that created 2,000. Well, if we can't see that job creation, then it's just not something Ben Franklin can invest in, because it's not about a return on investment for a group of investors or limited partners or even Ken Okrepkie. It's a return on investment for the community of northeastern Pennsylvania, in your case, Wilkes-Barre, and an investment that provides a return to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in jobs and tax revenue and making vibrant communities, because the economy in those communities is thriving.
No, and I appreciate that. And I think it's real interesting as we continue to talk to all the Connect partners. We've talked to Dorothy. And so hearing SBDC and sort of where they start at, and then talking to Launchbox and hearing from Kristen and Bill Andahazy and sort of where they are. And Bill's the one who says, if you've got the idea on the napkin, bring it to me. And once we get done with you, we'll polish you up, or we're going to send you down the line. And so I love that in the region, there is you can start here. And once there's something really there and you've thought through it, you can go see these people and they'll polish you up and run you through the ringer and do your discovery and all those things. And once it's viable, there's another place we can go. And so I like that there's a chain of individuals and organizations that are set up so that no matter where you are in that process, someone is there as a resource to be able to jump in and help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of that ecosystem. It was the genesis to bringing Wilkes-Barre Connect together, right? And instead of somebody coming to one partner, that partner helps them or doesn't, and then they're like, oh, I'm frustrated because I don't know where else to go, and then I just got to jump from one to the other. You have essentially an entity that says, listen, we'll be the quarterback moving the ball across the field to each of the partners as it makes sense, to make sure that entrepreneurs don't get frustrated.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And you've mentioned it a little bit, but can you talk about some of the things that that Ben Franklin and you are looking at, that when you evaluate potential investment opportunities, what are some of the things that sort of stand up as green flags? Like, this is something that we want to look into, or this is something that we want to explore?
Yeah, I would say universally, when entrepreneurs come to me and they come through my door and they want to tell me about the thing that the aha moment, the product that they've built, they could sit and talk to me for an hour or 2 hours all day about how great the thing is that they have produced or that they would like to produce. That there is so much emphasis and focus on the product. From my perspective, I want to say it's the least important part of the deal, but more importantly, and probably most important, is the person. What experience or knowledge does that person have in that marketplace? What experience or knowledge do they have in taking a product and commercializing it, or interacting with customers, so that it's one thing to say, hey, do people like what I'm talking about? It's another to say, will you buy this next week when I drop it off for X dollars, right? It's a different conversation. So does the entrepreneur talk about commercialization, or do they talk about the product and the features that product set has? So I think number one is clearly the entrepreneur and their ability to execute on building a business. I think number two is the market and market traction. Do you have revenue? Do you have sales? Am I at the idea stage where I want to build a beta product that I'm going to go show to some people and get feedback? Or have I already gone through that process? I've not only showed the product to customers, but I have customers who want to pay me for it, and my product is in the marketplace, right? So how far are we into the commercialization process? And then what does that market traction look like? How long did it take us, going into the marketing and sales side of things? From the date that you met the potential customer as a lead, how long did it take you to go from a lead to then eventually getting them as a customer, right? Because there's a process associated with that. There's a time associated with that, and there's a cost associated with that. So the entrepreneur telling me about, where is my market? And then how do I drive a sales and a marketing process? And then once our customers get the product, what is their reaction to it? From my perspective, those are all the things that are more important than the product.
Right.
And people lead with what they're comfortable with, and they're most comfortable to talk about the product that's there. And then of course we look at capital investment. What is the skin in the game, right? It's one thing to say I spent, lots of my time putting something together. It's another to say I put, and a lot of money is different for the individual. Could be $1,000, could be $1 million. But what is enough money that says, hey, when I wake up every day, I need to work on this. All of our entrepreneurs have to be full time. So we're not investing in hobbies or ideas. We're investing in entrepreneurs who are committed to build a company, build a product, commercialize it, and create jobs in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So, that's more important to us. So that capital shows skin in the game. It shows that I can't just walk away. It's enough money to me that I don't want to go do something else that somebody's willing to pay me more to do. I want to build this company, create the jobs in Wilkes-Barre and the community there, Kingston or whatever's close by, Dallas. That's what we need to see, that level of commitment. And that comes from is led by the entrepreneur.
No, and I appreciate that. And I think it's good for people to hear that, again, going back to the fact that there are different phases, but the notion of it's how much skin do you have in the game and who's willing to buy the product. Like, it's amazing that you have this brilliant idea, but are there people lining up willing to spend money on this? And if they are, then we can have that conversation. But until then, find them or find a new product is really what it sort of sounds like, or a new way to go.
It's amazing to me when we'll have somebody, even maybe somebody that has made it into our portfolio, and they're so focused on the product and on all the people who have told them that it's a great product, and then we ask them the question, so when are they ready to buy it, and why did they say no? And they're like, well, nobody said no yet. Well, how many customers do you have? Well, I don't have any customers. Well, that means everybody said no.
Right.
But the entrepreneur's mindset is, I have figured it out. I have this wonderful idea that's going to create a great company and a great lifestyle for me and my family. But the reality is that that's the question that I want entrepreneurs to ask. Not, is this a good idea? Not, is this something I like? Not, is something that I think is good for the marketplace? Those are all at a very high level. And the answer can always be yes. Because in many cases, these are your friends, these are your relationships, these are your colleagues that you worked with previously. So they don't want to tell you, wow, you left your job and this is a really bad idea. What they'll do is tell you it's a good idea. And then, but the question that you need to be asking as an entrepreneur, so when will you buy it, and how do we implement it, and what does it cost, and then what does it cost me to implement that, right?
Yeah.
So now we're talking about a revenue model, now we're talking about a business model, and now we're talking about building a company that as it scales can create more jobs to then have a high performing company that in a perfect world gets to exit, and it creates generational wealth. And that entrepreneur is a serial entrepreneur, so they take that experience and then they do it again and again and again. And from a Ben Franklin's perspective, that's exactly what we're looking for. Although we'll take the singles. 30 jobs in any one of the communities in northeastern Pennsylvania is very good for that community. But we'd love to see that entrepreneur build it, grow it, scale it, sell it, move on to the next one, and continue to do that, in a repeat performance.
That's amazing. No, I like that. Pivoting a little bit, you've mentioned a few times the importance of IP and coming to you with an IP and a solid one that folks have had. And I know that a lot of people listening, if they're in that startup phase, they may not be at a point where they've got a solid IP. Why, in coming to Ben Franklin, is having that IP sort of locked in place an important piece to have going forward?
So I think we should first define intellectual property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intellectual property, it could be patents, right? I could have paid some money, a provisional patent, which gives me 1 year to then go out and validate that the market's interested in it before I pay to submit the full patent application. Or maybe I already have the patent application. It could be a trade secret. We do something that no one else has figured out. We're not going to do a patent because that's a public document,
Right.
but we're going to make people sign non-disclosure acts. And so if they come work for us, they can't go take that thing and do it somewhere else. So it could be a trade secret. It could be intellectual property. It could be a methodology. But the company needs to have something that gives them a competitive position in the marketplace. Because if they don't, from a Ben Franklin perspective, if they don't, then somebody else can just replicate it. And then you can just create new competitors. And if it's a low cost barrier to entry, you could have lots of competitors in a very short period of time. Because as soon as you start to get out in the marketplace and start to promote your product, the world is a very small place, and in today's technology, you can see a document or an activity or a product, very quickly. And so you need that level of intellectual property that gives you that competitive position in the marketplace, so you can hold that position either to continue to operate for a long period of time, or to get to a position where there's value in that, so that somebody will say, I would like to buy that technology or that intellectual property. Our loan is guaranteed on the intellectual property of the company. It's not guaranteed on people's personal assets or houses or cars, et cetera. We're guaranteed on the company and the technology within the company. So for that reason, we want to see intellectual property. Now, the reality is, we both know from a software perspective, code is code.
Right.
You can change code, you can modify code. So really hard to get a patent in the software space or in the AI space. But that's okay, because you have something that's unique and it's doing something that nobody else is doing at the time. And then hopefully you can accumulate enough customers fast enough to have a first position in the marketplace, brand recognition, name recognition, and then you can grow and scale because of the quality of what you do and the speed that you've delivered it to market.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate that. And sort of going on that same line, you just mentioned AI and a lot of the changes that are coming through in code and all these things. Thinking about the investment landscape, specifically looking at technology, how have you seen that change over the last couple of years? And where do you and Ben Franklin sort of see that going, specifically looking at NEPA as well?
Yeah, I think first of all, the good news for Ben Franklin is we're industry agnostic. So we'll invest in manufacturing companies, we'll invest in AI companies, we'll invest in a medical device company, a pharma company. If someone has an idea and they want to commercialize that, and that idea and that commercialization effort will create jobs, Ben Franklin will invest in that technology. So we're not an investor that is only investing in one industry or one area of expertise that we believe we could shepherd through. So I think that's first of all, and that's most important. Clearly right now, almost every entrepreneur who comes to us, is expressing either a level of interest or the integration of artificial intelligence, right? Because we're just not sure exactly where it's going to go and what that market's going to look like. And are robots going to be doing all of our tasks at some point in time? Probably not. I think really when we're talking about artificial intelligence and AI, we're really talking about creating efficiencies in a marketplace. So I remember the day going back, probably, holy cow, 30 years ago, when the big, hairy, audacious goals, we were going to put a laptop on everyone's desk everywhere in the country. And at that time, there weren't computers on desks. There weren't even monitors that were just connected to some sort of system. So that was, it was like, oh my gosh, computers are going to change the world. They're going to take over and there won't be any jobs. I would say this is probably very similar. We have access to information and the synthesization, the condensing of information and summarizing it and presenting it back to people in a faster way, a more accurate way, and will it make sure that people are doing higher value jobs and skills? Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. But artificial intelligence is going to be a tool, and I think the challenge in the marketplace right now around AI is that, if I'm not mistaken, like 90% of the capital raised last year went to 5 or 6 companies in the country, because they were the very large companies that have figured out how to commercialize artificial intelligence to make money. Right. There are lots of other folks who have said, this is a really cool thing, and I'm going to engage artificial intelligence. Well, the problem is, a really cool thing is that probably that individual is not the only person to think of that really cool thing across the entire country. And then the final part of that is, if you build something cool and you haven't built it for a customer and a purpose, well, the problem is you never build a company that generates revenue that allows you to grow and scale. So I think where entrepreneurs already have a business model and they integrate AI to be more efficient, onboarding customers or engaging customers or making the user experience better, I think those companies will do very well. I think people who build a product that leverages AI tools for a customer need, whether that customer helped pay for the build out or that customer is the first customer and then there's a market that they can go replicate quickly, those companies will be successful. All of the others that are just building cool technology that looks neat and does something really fast that was never able to do before, well, somebody else will replicate it. And if it doesn't have a customer at the end of that process, then those companies will raise a little bit of money or they'll invest their capital and then they just won't be able to survive very long. So I think right now AI is hot, but I think we're like the .com bubble, the computer processing world. There's and software tools associated with that, ERP systems, et cetera. We're just into the next phase of the development of technology. There's a fun letter out there in, I don't know, 17 or 1800s where they said all of the technology had been delivered for the patent office that it ever could possibly be created. And the reality is that they say that if you asked a farmer, back in that time, what do you need right now? They would have said, I need a faster horse. Right. That's what I need, as opposed to I need a tractor because they didn't exist. So now you evolve as technology evolves. I think we will find uses of technology, and I think we'll be doing this for many, many years to come.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for that insight. And talking about technology and sort of the idea of the .com era, it's sort of where you got started as well, right?
Yeah, I happen to be part of one of the earliest kind of .coms in northeastern Pennsylvania, a company called collegerecruiting.com. We were trying to support kind of Division II and Division III athletes originally, and then it evolved to music, and then it evolved just to students and recruitment for colleges and universities. And that company, I had a chance. Probably the best part about that company is we traveled the world. We had customers from all 50 states. Here in northeastern Pennsylvania, learned how to raise capital. But for what I do today, two things happen. Number one, I got a chance to be an entrepreneur, live the life of an entrepreneur, travel around the country, put deals together, interact with customers, and understand how hard it is to build a company. So I learned about raising capital. We raise capital literally all across the country. Yeah. But more importantly, I learned what it was to be an entrepreneur and the grind and the sales and putting in a sales process and an operational process and building management teams. So learned a little bit about raising capital, and then learned a lot about being an entrepreneur is pretty hard. I mean, that's life. The overnight successes are 7 to 10 years, and there's a lot of hard work and a lot of grind and sleepless nights and worrying about payroll. That's the reality of an entrepreneur. At the end, everybody celebrates the exit and everybody celebrates that they got to the end of the journey. The reality is, single digit percentages get all the way from idea all the way to hey, I exited my company and I sold it for $300 million. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's amazing. But I like that you have your own skin in the game and that you've done it before. I think there's oftentimes people worry that when they're coming to request money or they're talking to investors that these are individuals who have the education and have the title, but have not done it themselves. And so it's great that there's someone who's coming to us in our region who's done it before and has done it in our region before. So I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing that. So.
Yeah, and I think in northeastern Pennsylvania, we have a number of success stories. I won't go through all of them, but we've got a number of success stories of entrepreneurs that took ideas, commercialized them, create jobs. And, whether it's the Pepper Jam story in downtown Wilkes-Barre, which probably everybody's heard, Chris and Mike, had an idea, that they figured out how to sell products on the internet all the way through iGourmet, TMG Health, Noble Biomaterials. We have American Paper Bag now down at Sugar Notch. That they started out as one person with an idea. Now 139 employees. If you go home tonight and you get a bag from Amazon Prime, very good chance if you looked at the bottom of it, it'll say made in American Paper Bag. So we've got some really cool companies, some entrepreneurs that have had some success. And we had a company in our portfolio this year that raised $24 million. I have companies that have raised 7, 10, raising money from Silicon Valley, New York, Philadelphia. The reality is it's not about can I raise money or can't I raise money in northeastern Pennsylvania? It's do you have a company that can scale, that can provide the return on investment for entrepreneurs or for investors? Because remember, when investors are investing money, they're doing it to get a return on investment. Again, you go back to the entrepreneur's mindset. Well, I'm raising money so I can create jobs, so that I can sell my products, so that I can change the world in whatever industry that I'm in. But investors arguably don't care about that. Investors They put money in and they expect a certain return. And if you're talking venture capital, you're looking at least a 20x return on the money. So can that business grow and scale to that level? And if the answer is yes, well, you can raise money and you raise capital here in northeastern Pennsylvania. We've had lots of companies that have done it.
Well, and you answered my next question, which was going to be some of the success stories. And I think about Ian and that story all the time of the Connect had just started and we answered the phone, of all the incubators that were in the area, and that now it's 139 jobs that are in this region. And you're right. Like every time I see a bag, it's one of those things. Is this from Ian? That's, Ian sending me something today. So I think it's great that in NEPA, that the ability to have an idea, start a company, and do global work exists here. People don't believe it, but it's happening on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, Ian's story is a great one, right? I mean, I got a call on a Thursday night from the governor's action team. Now that's business in PA. So the entity that takes leads, and then Rob Watts called and said, "Hey, Ken, can you meet with this person, Ian Robeson, tomorrow morning at 7:30, 8 o'clock?" And it turned out it fit my calendar. It fit Joe Boylan's calendar. So Joe Boylan was working at the chamber at the time. Mm-hmm. And we just met Ian and said, "Ian, what are you trying to do? How are you trying to do it?" And then Ian, it literally left us. He went to the Lehigh Valley. Then he came back. Kudos to Joe because he spent the weekend shepherding him around the community, showing him Harvey's Lake and all in northeastern Pennsylvania. And then he left us. He went to Tampa. He went to Arizona. He had come from Canada. He went out to the West Coast. And when he got all done, he said, "You know what? This is the place to be." I mean, from where we are right now, where you're sitting, you can retouch 96 million people within one day's truck drive. Yeah. If you're going to move a product, you need to be in northeastern Pennsylvania or Reno, Nevada, which is where the second site for American Paper Bag is located, because you have that ability to move products quickly and easily based on the infrastructure that's there from a truck traffic or rail. So then he comes here and he needs to raise capital. We provide a little bit of capital, but he needs a lot more than the hundreds of thousands of dollars that Ben Franklin can provide. And then we help him work to find the resources to raise the capital to put his first line in. And then from there, you just go down to the next side, the next line, second, third, fourth. This facility is high tech. When we talk about manufacturing jobs, we're talking about automated machines that move paper, fold it, and then out at the bottom comes a paper bag. So pretty cool story. In the sense that it's the perfect example is that the SBDC was notified, the chamber was notified, Ben Franklin was notified. We all come together to be supportive, the governor's action team. So instead of one person saying, "Hey, this isn't my job, I don't think this fits for me," like everybody comes together to say, "Hey, let's see if we can help this entrepreneur." What I wouldn't want to do though is say there's an easy button. Right. I woke up and I'm like, I have an idea. Now Ben Franklin and the chamber and the SBDC just go figure it out. What people will never see is the hard work and the time and the commitment and the energy and the countless hours that Ian spent putting all the pieces in place to go build that company. So it wasn't magical. I got a little money and then the world just became simple and easy. It's a grind to build a company, and kudos to him. He's found the right people. He's found the right partners. And now we're blessed to have a company like that here in northeastern Pennsylvania.
No, I agree. And that's an amazing story that he has. And it's, you're right. There's no easy button, because for him to get here and be ready to hit the ground running, years of work had to go into it. And then the years of work once he got here before people even knew that American Paper Bag was a thing. So I appreciate that.
Like, think about it. He had done this twice already in Europe. And then he came here and it was hard. Yeah. Right? So he had done this twice. He wasn't like taking an idea and like, I'm going to make bags faster and greener than ever before. He did. This wasn't, I'm going to do that. He's like, I already did that twice. Yep. And now I want to do it here in North America. And it was still hard, right? So the entrepreneur who's doing it for the first time and has never built a business or put the resources in place to help scale a business, it's even harder.
No, I agree. I want to hit on one of the things before I let you go that you just said that I didn't realize, but you said that there are 96 million households essentially within a truck drive away because of our geographic location in rail and driving. I had never heard that before, but that's amazing. How does that help Ben Franklin in the idea of when we're investing and we're looking at potential growth? How does that drive Ben Franklin, knowing that we sit in a space that outside of us in Reno, like if you're trying to hit a large population of people, while it's not New York or Philly or any of these big cities, it's little itty bitty Northeast Pennsylvania, but you now are sort of that economic generator where you're investing in those companies. How does that help drive you all?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say for Ben Franklin that's our metric that we're really focused on. What I would say is for a manufacturing company, you should be building your business here in Northeast. Okay. right? So if you're a manufacturer, we just helped a company move from Brooklyn to the Hazleton area, at a manufacturing company that said, hey, for all of these reasons, northeastern Pennsylvania is a perfect place to be. And they'll have 60 some jobs right out of the gate. They'll create another 60 jobs within the next 12 months. What I would want people to know is this is a great place from a strong workforce. We have 14 colleges and universities to feed that workforce on all different levels, from the trades all the way through to MDs here in northeastern Pennsylvania. And then the fact that the cost to build products and then distribute products from here is probably as good as anywhere in the nation. This is why you need to build your business here. So if I'm a manufacturer and I'm trying to figure out where to build my company, why would I want to put it in New Jersey? Why would I want to put it in New York? Why would I want to put it in Maryland? It's just going to be more expensive, and you don't have the access to the workforce or access to the network of either provided by rail or provided by truck traffic. We're a great place. And if that company decides to come to northeastern Pennsylvania, then Ben Franklin could invest in it. So I don't know that we just kind of focus all our energy around that 96 million people. But what I would say is it gives us an opportunity that other places in the country just aren't going to have. I say that in all seriousness, not in arrogance that, hey, northeastern Pennsylvania is great and we love it. And, you and I are talking because we both care about the place we call home. And I say it because it's just fact.
Yeah.
The reality, if you want to build a company, it's going to cost you less to build it here, and to extend the life of that company, and then get that product to your customer. These are all things that just make good business sense. It's not about any flash or sizzle or mystique and smoke and mirrors. It's like, if you want a practical business model, this makes sense to do that. And oh, by the way, we have resources here who can invest in your company to help you grow it and scale it and carry it forward.
That's amazing. No, and it's good for people to hear. So I guess the last question is, what advice do you have for an entrepreneur who's looking for their first investment, and sort of putting things together to start looking for investors? What advice would you give them the first time out?
Yeah, I would say that when you lead with, this is my revenue model, this is my business proposition, and here's how I'm going to acquire customers, right? That conversation is all about the business model. It's all about the financial stability of the organization. And remember, if I'm talking to investors, I can't get a return on my investment unless you understand all of those things. So the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make, they all want to tell me about their product and why it's great and maybe the intellectual property. But at the end, the things that are most important are the revenue model, are the business model, are the acquisition of customers. What's the cost to get a customer? How long does it take to get that customer? Because now we're talking about the business. And if I'm an investor, then now I know how much money you need in order to execute on that business. The problem is, if you tell me about your product, we can't get to how much money do you actually need and why do you need the money, because all of that answer is built into the business, into the revenue model, the business model, and the customer acquisition strategy. And the reality is, if I'm an entrepreneur who's starting out for the first time, I haven't come up and had to face all of those challenges because I'm so busy making the thing that I think is really cool and is great and is fun and is going to change the world in whatever industry that I'm building it. So that's the piece. Essentially, I would tell the entrepreneur, it's not about you and your product. It's about your market and how you're going to be able to grow it so that you can get a return on investment for the investor. It's about the investor, not about you. Probably the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs make.
Ken, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for this. This has been an amazing chat. This is Ken Okrepkie, who is regional manager with the Ben Franklin Technologies Institute of Northeast Pennsylvania, one of many across the state. Ken, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good to be here.